For a little while now, I've been interested in the concept of a Viking-style weaving to make a cloak that the Nordic people evidently called a Varafeldur. There's a couple videos online about authentic Varafeldur weaving using weighted warps and period tools. I don't have the patience for that, but I thought I would try the concept anyway. So today I was weaving on my tapestry loom a proof of concept Varafeldur sample with the idea that sometime in the near future I might put on my big Gilmore loom, traditional shaft loom, a warp that would be appropriate for weaving a Varafeldur. This is a small tapestry sample that uses plain weave as a base and loose locks or loose fiber to make the design and the fluffy bit. The interesting idea of a Varafeldur is that it makes a cloak that would be suitable for a soldier or, I suppose, any Nordic person who is looking for a very warm, water-shedding cloak that would be made out of wool to wear in battle or during movement of troops, I suppose. And it would shed water because it still has lanolin in it, but would be very warm because it's wool. The back side of the weaving looks like this. You can see the plain weave holding the locks in place. It's kind of random on the back. You could do it in a much more measured way, counting warp ends and such. I didn't find that to be necessary because all of the fluffy bits are on the front side and you can't tell if you exactly picked the right spot. So the back side is much more smooth and the front side is the fluffy side. Now, I don't have Icelandic sheep wool, so this is not a true Varafeldur. This is just using that style as my inspiration. If you were trying to weave a true, authentic Nordic Varafeldur, you would want to use Icelandic sheep wool that still had the lanolin in place, where the locks were intact with lanolin in place. All of this wool is various types, and the lanolin has been washed out of it for the most part. This down here is a Suffolk sheep. There's some Corriedale. This is Navajo churro. They're different lengths of locks, so you use a little bit different style of twist for the longer locks than the shorter locks, so that they come out still similar in length on the front side. For this weaving, I've used a tapestry loom, warped with wool. This is hand-spun Navajo churro wool. I'm using a pickup stick, and this is a leaf stick that I'm using as another pickup stick, as well as a stick shuttle. This is the Navajo churro that I use for the warp and for the tabby weft. And then I have various rovings that I'm using for the design. This weaving is just going to be fairly small, a little rectangle wall hanging that I can use as my test. I've on the back twisted this in different ways to find the one that seems to work the best. When first starting this weaving, you lay down a section of plain weave. I twined it a little bit at the beginning and then did several rows of plain weave. Then you do a row of loose fleece, spaced an inch or an inch and a half apart. Lay down 2 or 3 rows of plain weave, and then you do more of this loose fleece offset from the previous row, an inch or inch and a half apart. If you do that all the way through, you're going to get what looks like just continuous fleece. You're not going to see the plain weave at all, and it's going to be very thick, very fluffy, very warm. So let me show you an example of what I'm doing. I've done a lot of rows already, and I've ended with 3 rows of plain weave, tabby, using the wool Navajo churro hand spun yarn. I've pressed that into place so that it's nice and tight and holds these little fluffs tightly locked in place. And now I'm going to, so I have 3 rows here, and now I'm going to put more of the locks. And I've got a pattern going right here, so I'm going to use some of the white fleece on the outside, and then the dark Navajo churro fleece on the inside, and white again on the outside. So let me just start by choosing a little lock here. You can see that you need to kind of pull it apart and make sure that all the fibers are just their staple length so that they don't fall apart. This is how you keep this thing from falling apart on the loom, having it just the staple length of the fiber. And you can see that you don't take much, because if I were to twist this, it would make quite a thick yarn. So it doesn't take a lot to make one lock. Looking at where I placed the lock before, towards the outside edge, I'm going to choose a place a little further in. This is a shorter staple, it's about 3 inches long. I want it to be long, so I'm just going to wrap it around one of my warp ends and tuck it in place. I'm bringing this dark out, so I'm going to pull off some of the Navajo churro. It is a longer staple length. You can see that it's maybe 5 or 6 inches long. What I'm doing there is I'm going to wrap it, leave it a little tail, wrap it once, but then instead of just stopping there, I'm going to bring it under the next 2 warp ends. Can you see that? It's wrapped over this one, and it's under these 2. It's going to come out about even, and just slide that into place. And I'm going to move along, doing that same thing every inch or inch and a half. Sorry, got my brain a little confused there. Okay. And again, this is not authentic Nordic weaving. This is Nordic inspired. I think about what would a frontiersman have done here in America if they didn't have a buffalo robe. Would this have been good for them? These are some more European wools, and Navajo churro is one that descended from Spanish herds raised by the Navajo people here in America. Is this something that the frontiersmen would have valued? I have no idea if it was ever done here in America, but that's my inspiration. On the outside edge, I don't want to wrap it around the very outside one because it's hard for the tabby to lock that in. So I always make sure that I'm not going any further than the second to last one. You're not going to see that, but it allows the tabby to lock in the fibers. Now I have a row of these twisted bits of fleece along here, and you can see I just kind of guessed at the placement. The next thing we're going to do is run 3 rows of tabby to lock in the locks. It doesn't matter how many rows of tabby you choose to use, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever is going to work for you to give you the density that you're looking for and to lock these fibers in place. I'm going to use a pickup stick to open up my shed. So I run this through the opposite way from what it was for my last row of tabby. I want to be sure that I'm locking these tightly into place. So I don't want to use, even though there is fiber separating the last row of tabby, I want to be sure that I'm using the alternate up, down. Once I've run this through, just turn it on its side. And I run my stick shuttle with my wool on through there. And I just grab the edge, put it at a 45, and then drop it down so that we have that nice arc. I'm going to take that stick out and use my other pickup stick to push that tightly into place. That's going to really lock it in. And you can see that it has gone around each of these locks. Then I'll turn this one up, run my stick shuttle back through, same thing, put it at a 45, drop it down, and then using my other pickup stick, I'm going to lock this next row of tabby into place. And for what I've been doing, 3 rows seems to be about right, so I will repeat this one more time before I start putting the fleece row in place. And when I put the fleece row in place, I'm going to want to push it, I'm going to want to put them offset from the previous row. That is how they end up looking like it's one continuous row instead of a bunch of little blobs of fleece sticking up. So we'll take a look at that one more time. You can see, let me turn this a little bit for you. You can see that I put fleece here, 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 and here, and then on the outer edge. So I'm going to want to try to alternate that. I choose my bit of fleece. You can test to see if you've got the right amount by kind of twisting it. If it's a nice bulky yarn, then you're in good shape. This one was further in, so I'm going to put this one on the outside edge. Twisting it around one warp thread and sliding it into place. Then we take the dark. It's a longer staple, so we're going to want to, you know what, I'm going to put one more light one here. Again, this is not a very rigid pattern. You want to get the gist of a design. So I put one more in there just so that I have a little bit of the white on the edge. And I'm going to move in, this is where the dark is, so I'm going to move in here for the next dark one. I'm going to go around one warp, sorry, leave the tail on this side, I'm going to go around one warp this way, tail sticking out here, and I'm choosing 2 more to run under it. That just spaces the tails apart. The tails here on this longer fiber then end up looking like 2 instead of clumping together into 1. How do you decide whether to just do a twist or go under extras? It depends on the staple. If you have a shorter staple that makes it so that you just have these tiny little tags, if you run under, then don't run under. Just do a twist around. Full twist out, and both of the ends come out in the same spot. If you have a longer staple, twist around one and then run one of the tails underneath 1 or 2 or 3 more warp yarns and have it pop up a little further down. It just helps to space it out more, and what that does is it ends up making the staple, it makes the little flags, the little tag ends, stick out at about the same length because you've taken up, I don't know, 1/2 inch by running it under more fibers. And it's still going to be just as warm because the back side, what you're running it underneath, is going to be right next to the person's skin. One other thing that can be done with this, of course you can do like I'm doing, make a little wall hanging, but you can also make it be a faux sheepskin rug by taking this and just using some of your fiber instead of using the skin of a sheep that has been killed. You're using the fiber of a sheep that has been shorn, and you're weaving it together into what would then look like a sheepskin rug, but it is humane. We're almost to the end of this row. You can see what I've done there. I have one more dark edge. We'll do it right here. And then we'll do one on the outer edge. Not all the way to the edge, because the last row I did it on the second to last one. So I'm going to go 4th in. And again, I just chose the 4th because it seems right. Now we have that. I'll repeat the tabby and continue on until I am at the size that I want. And for this just test of concept weaving, I'm only going to make a very small wall hanging. This takes a long time because you're doing all of the tabby by hand. You're twining all of these bits of fluff by hand. It takes a long time, and I think I can do this much quicker on a traditional shaft loom where I have these warp threads warped up for plain weave, so I can then just use the treadles to lift, do 3 quick rows of tabby, and then spend a little bit of time twining this together. And I do, if I have enough material, want to make a full Nordic cloak or Nordic inspired cloak. And so that would take weeks or months of time doing it in the traditional Nordic manner. And I'm just not patient enough for that. Thanks for watching. I'll show you the picture of the finished product at the end.